and everything else is live. So.
Is it live right now?
We're live right now.
Is this song playing? Uh-oh. We're going to cut that. That's okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan. So glad you're with us. I'm going to start us out with a little music as you're finding your seat. And then we're going to have a great night together talking about faith, hope, and love to change our election day. There's a world that poor, God suffering, silent casualties. Oh God, grant us peace in these sleepless nights. Hardly breathe, despite brutality. I know they will be free. I know they will be free. So let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love there's left to see will all be free. Yeah. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love is as we see. We'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. In these desperate times, love will hold us here. Love will join our hands. Teach us to have no fear. So we lay our head down to wash their feet. When we see our brother, oh, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. Let the light keep shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love there's us to see. We'll all be free. Yeah. The light keep shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love is as you see, we'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. Now there's a little part for the choir, and I forgot to bring my choir, so I might have to recruit you. You're just going to repeat after me, free, free. We'll all be free, we'll sing that together. So go. We'll be free, 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 free. We'll all be free. We'll be free. We'll all be free. We'll be free. Free. We'll all be free. One more. We'll be free. Free. We'll all be free. Yeah. Let the light keep it shining. Let it break into the darkness. All the love is as you see. We'll all be free. Let the light. Let it break into the darkness. All the love there's us to see. We'll all be free. Yes, we'll all be free. Oh, we'll all be free.
Well, this is really nice. Thanks for a round of applause. It's a nice room for applause. It really sounds great. Hey, my name is Doug Padgett. So glad that you're with us tonight. I hope we both common good. We love being in West Michigan. So thank you for having us. We come back here a lot. It's beautiful outside, but we just love the people here. But frankly, we're also here because there's a lot of work to do. Now, I come back here sometimes for friends and just to hang out and be around and go to the breweries and all that stuff. But that's not why we're in town this time, unfortunately. We're back in town again. Because we feel like it's important that we say to people in this city, in this region, in this state, in fact, in the whole country, that faith, hope, and love can be an alternative to supporting insurrections and Christian nationalism. Amen? Wouldn't that be a nice thing? Now, I'm going to tell you, we started this effort in 2017 and 18. We said, let's travel the country and ask faith voters to not just think about their political identity through their political party, to not just think about only a particular policy that they might want to see enacted, but to have a deeper sense of their civic life and engagement, and to make faith, hope, and love their commitment. We don't want the government doing our faith for us, but we also want faith voters to know that we should care about things like faith, hope, and love, and that should be what we're voting for. That we shouldn't separate our vote, but we also should make sure that everyone, whether they care about faith, hope, and love or not, whether they care about the Christian message or not, feel totally included and have every bit of access to life in this society. Now that shouldn't be a shocking thing. That shouldn't be a nod your head applause line. That should be the kind of thing that people are like, why would you even need to say that? Because some of us think from the founding of our nation, that's been the deal. Everybody is included. No religion gets special privilege. No library is supposed to do the work of Christian discipleship if Christians want to do Christian discipleship. Amen? That's not how it's supposed to go. So we would travel the country saying to people, please do all that you can to not re-elect Donald Trump. I mean, that's just flat out, and if anybody doesn't know that about us, that's been some of our work, is asking faith voters to act in such a way on election day that Donald Trump would not be re-elected as president, and hopefully will never be president again. I found the man to be a threat to the United States of America, to the existence of this planet, and to everyone on it. I think he's a real problem, and we used the proper mechanisms of an election to make sure he wasn't re-elected. And we all know that not everybody thinks that's what happened, right? I got a text message from somebody just yesterday that told me that the real insurrection happened on election day, not on January 6th. So there's some different stories being spread. So the reason we're traveling this year, shockingly, is not just to ask people to make faith, hope, and love their voting criteria, but because we felt the need to say to people, Christian nationalism and insurrections should not be supported at the ballot box. That's not what we should be doing. That's not what we should be about. So we travel the country. Right now we're in that truck and trailer with that message. We're coming back here in a few weeks, and we're going to be in a big bus that says that. We're going to be on the road until Election Day, doing all that we can, not only in Michigan, but we're going to go off to Arkansas and Texas and come back to Pennsylvania and Ohio and Wisconsin. We're going to be traveling around to places where we know this next election is not only important for political outcomes, but frankly is important because of the narrative of what's happening in this country. So we're so glad that you're here with us tonight. We're going to try to make this a good time. Sometimes we think we get a little earnest, we get a little serious, so we're going to try not to be overly serious tonight about a very serious matter. Because sometimes you need to just wake up, speak up, and stand up. Now look, there's a lot of other stories in this country. It's a complex country. We all know it. There's a lot of disagreements. There's disagreements in our families. There's disagreements in our churches. That's what makes us a good country, is that people can disagree and that people can say to one another, hey, why don't you think about it this way? Or have you ever considered this? Or step over to this side of the line and look at it from this angle. That's a great thing. It's what makes us a fantastic country. It's what makes our world a wonderful world. Of course that's what we should be doing, is saying to one another, there's another way to see it. So we don't want to tell anybody to be quiet. Now, I get that impulse sometimes. I hear people talking about Christian nationalism. I hear people talking about Ottawa Impact stuff, and I'm like, I just wish those people would be quiet. I watch people on certain Fox News channels and on certain radio stations, and I wish they would just be quiet. But what we don't do in this country is tell other people that they can't talk. What we do in this country is we speak up ourselves. We raise up our voices and we share what we need to share, and we make sure that there's always an alternative story that's going to include everyone and is never going to leave faith, hope, and love behind. So we're not asking on this tour, we're not asking tonight for anyone to be quiet. We're asking all of you to stand up. We're asking all of you to speak up. We're asking all of you to be those people who share your message. So we're so glad you're here. And you may feel a little bit encouraged after tonight. We sure hope you do. But I got to tell you, we feel really encouraged every time we get in a room and there's people that are willing to talk about all this stuff. And we are really excited about the candidates that are running in this area. We're really excited about the personal stories that we've heard about people in this area. And you're going to hear a bunch of those tonight. Because we need to be hearing and telling stories. This country has had a bad habit of only telling some people's stories. Telling other people their stories don't matter. We're going to do all we can tonight to tell stories of people for whom they put a lot on the line. A lot does matter. They have a lot of deep questions. We all have questions about how we're going to live in this society. This great experiment, we don't know if it's going to work, do we? But we're going to work every day to make sure that it does. So I have the privilege of introducing you to Dan Fisher. Maybe you know Dan. I just met Dan moments ago, so Dan, come on up here. Dan and I are going to talk for a bit because Dan was a pastor here in the area, and I'm so excited to interview because I too am a pastor. And I'm one of those evangelical, Jesus-loving, evangelizing pastors. And if you don't mind, I'm going to sit down because I am freakishly tall. A lot of people don't realize that when they see things like online or whatever, and then they get in person, they're like, oh my goodness, and it's just really awkward. So, for my well-being, if we could, is it okay if I sit down?
No, it's more than fine for me.
Okay. I'm one of those evangelical pastors that has been on the inclusive side. Wanted my church to be inclusive of all people, all lifestyles. Wanted to be a place of healing, pushing forward. And I always knew that there were other people in my tradition, evangelical tradition, that didn't see it that way. And that's all right. That's why I would hang around them, to try to, help them learn a little. And maybe I would learn a little. Maybe I could see what they're saying. Maybe they could see what I'm saying. It hasn't always gone so well, but that was sort of the hope, right? Is that you could listen. But there's a lot of cost to be paid when you start raising your voice. We have this little slogan around Homecoming Good that you wake up, you speak up, and you stand up. And sometimes when you wake up to certain issues and they start rolling around in your head, they're not only there when you're awake, they're there when you're asleep, and they start haunting you in some ways. And Dan, I know just a bit of your story and excited to hear more of it. Tell us for just a few minutes here about what happened with you. How did it go? What's your story? What brought you here tonight?
Sure. So I was a pastor for about almost 15 years out in Boston, Massachusetts, down in Birmingham, Alabama, in the Chicago area, and then in Holland, Michigan, most recently in Jensen. So my family and I, my wife and our 2 kids, have been exposed to quite a variety of cultures, different places in the United States. And along the way, you accumulate all kinds of just little tidbits of information that are helpful that push up against the things that you grew up with. And you begin to realize, growing up in a very conservative, religiously conservative, politically environment, there's going to be a little bit of untangling of this ball of yarn that you've been given. And so as you do that, especially as a pastor or any people-facing position, there are those risks. You begin to speak out some of the things that you believe to be true because of the experiences you've had with a variety of people who have different needs than what you grew up with. And so to be a person who fights for, in this language, the common good, to speak up for folks and what's best for everyone, there are people who want to push back against that, whether it's family members or friends you grew up with. Yeah, you're right, it's tough. So we definitely experienced that, and in June of this year, decided that for the sake of my own mental health and the mental health of my family, as we wanted to continue pushing toward these things that we had become even more and more convinced we needed to push toward, we needed to make a vocational change for me. And so in June, I left the church setting as a staff person and transitioning into a new career. So it's been really exciting and a little bit challenging.
And I heard that you're doing this thing with wanting to have 100 coffee meetings with people?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so just 100 different coffees with leaders in the community at varying levels, whether it's at the state level, local level, county level, whatever that is, in order to help me learn more about this area, West Michigan, this place that we call home. Anytime any of us wants to make a decision about how to implement some kind of change, it's important to know the context that we're in. And there are not many more people in our area who know the context that we're in than those who are investing in it as leaders. And so I go into those conversations with 3 hopes: to understand what is the situation on the ground that you're seeing, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing, and where are ways that people are making progress in overcoming some of the challenges in our area to pursue the common good.
Dan, can you say a bit about how politics and the way people in your church were experiencing politics has affected you and maybe even influenced your vocational choices?
For sure, yeah. So it broke my heart, candidly. These last couple of years, all of you walked through it with me. With Donald Trump coming into power, all of the political maneuvering that was being done to make that happen, COVID and all of the shutdowns and the way that people responded to that, most recently with Patmos Library, all these different kinds of things, really broke my heart. The values that were being expressed, that were being embodied by people who I had previously respected, were the kinds of values that we were leading our children away from as we were trying to raise them to be mature, responsible contributors to our society. And so, processing life with my 13-year-old and my 9-year-old, I was in a position around the dining room table of deciding whether or not I was going to defend a group of people with whom I no longer aligned for the sake of holding on to a job, or if I was willing to let go of those things in order to be the person that my wife, my family, my kids believe that we are and say that we are. So that kind of pushed us off into this unknown that is, like I said, it's been a lot of fun, a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and some difficult nights and conversations, I imagine. So one of the things all of us as pastors have to think about is how much do we take our political life and include it in our church life? There's a new movement afoot to do that in a much more aggressive way. A lot of us are familiar with the Make America Great Again movement, the MAGA movement. There's a variant of that that's big in Texas and spreading to other places, coming out of churches, called Make America Godly Again. The Make America, or the MAGA movement around not greatness, but godliness. And it is an expressly Christian nationalist narrative. The belief that Christianity is the way that people have morals, and so on and so forth, and therefore Christianity should lead. That feels extreme. 10 years ago, I would have said as a pastor, look, let's not even talk about Christian nationalism. I mean, it's fringy. Yes, there's people who hold to it. It's never going to have cultural currency. It's never going to have power. And like so many other things that have gone on in the last 10 years, I was totally wrong about that. Do you have any thoughts about that as a pastor and what's going on and the threat of this, of the more blatant versions of Christian nationalism that's going on in churches all across the country?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's deeply problematic, like you said. So I've told folks that the Christian circles that I grew up in, again, conservative religiously, conservative politically, it would have cost my life more relationally had we let the churches and families we grew up with know that we were no longer politically conservative than if we were to let them know that we were no longer followers of Jesus. And that, for us, was extremely telling. There are churches on Baldwin, at the corner of Baldwin and 28th, that you know of or you have heard about, who have exchanged the gospel of Jesus for the maneuverings of people who want nothing more than a fleeting moment of the political stage. And it's tearing people apart. We have confused what the founding of this country was based on. We have said that it has been to push for a uniquely conservative version of Christianity, rather than it being a platform on which people of any faith or lack of faith can come and thrive, because they weren't able to find that in other places. And so I agree with you. The Christian nationalism thing years ago, I think people were really excited about it. I grew up in a family who boycotted McDonald's because back in the 90s they let people wear the clothing that they felt matched their gender. That was a big deal. But today, I think our eyes have been opened in many different ways at varying levels of how much this extreme form of faith is being pushed down our throats as a political socio.
Yeah, and combined with the government, really dangerous, right? Dan, thanks for being here. Sharing being here. Shockingly, this stuff is not fringy. I wish it was. It is dangerous. We have multiple current members of Congress that on a regular basis are calling for policies of Christian nationalism in the United States. Selling shirts on their website to fund their campaigns that say proud Christian nationalists. I don't have to sharpen that point for people who live here. You felt this even at the library level. So Tricia, would you come up and tell us a bit about what's happening at the library? And is Jesse here? Okay, Tricia's going to tell us about what happened at the library. I said, Tricia, I'm going to interview you, and she said, good, thank you. I don't like public speaking, so if you want to look here and not there, you're totally welcome to. People here know about what's happening at the library, but maybe not at the level that you do. People that are going to watch this online on the internet, don't think about them either, maybe don't know what's going on, or like me, only started by hearing news stories about what's happening in the library. Can you give a little window into what's going on?
I only became aware of it kind of in March-ish. I did grow up here, but I love libraries. So I heard about the village and like, great, oh yes, because I want the library to stay. Not knowing that there was a group of people that were upset that there were books in the library that they didn't agree with. And So started going to board meetings, started listening to the comments, started talking to the current board members about what was going on. As we got closer to the primary, people were putting up vote no signs, which baffled me. It's a library, it's for everyone. You have books for everyone. You know, you walk into Patmos Library and you can find a wonderful selection of children's books, which is maybe where I end up because I have 2 children. And I have a Kindle, so I tend to read off of that. But as I was talking to the board members, as I was talking to some of the librarians, they were saying things like, we're getting threats because we have these books in the library. We are getting people coming in and calling us names because we have certain books in the library. And again, I was confused because when I go to the library, I check out the books I want to check out.
Are you suggesting when you go to the library, they don't make you take books home that you don't want to? I didn't know how it worked here, and I started to wonder.
No, like growing up, I go to the library, I didn't even have to check out books. I could sit there for hours and read and put a book back, unlike at the store where they're like, oh, you're paying for that. And so it's this place where you go and you're yourself. You don't have any expectations. You get a book, you read it, or you get halfway through it and realize it's not for you. And you put that.
That's changed.
And I feel like that's changed. Like, I think everybody should go to the library and find something that resonates with them.
So what is happening? Tell us the vote no, yes piece.
So the library was up for millage 10 years ago. They had a millage.
Millage is the funding.
The funding. So they're asking for a renewal of their funding. And so there were those who did not agree with having books for everybody in the library, and they chose to say, well, let's start a movement of voting no. That way, the board will listen to us about what we want for our library. And so then there were vote no signs everywhere, and then the millage failed. And not because people don't love libraries, but because maybe there weren't enough people voting, or they weren't informed as to what the millage actually meant. It was 10 years ago, it was a very different climate than it is now.
So what's the situation now? Is the library open?
The library is open. Thankfully, we have some really great people worldwide who reached out and responded to one of the GoFundMes that was started. So we do have funding right now. The millage is on the ballot again in November, and we're hoping that it passes, because while the GoFundMe is wonderful, it will only keep the library open for about a year.
Yes, it's not, we shouldn't be funding our public libraries with patrons, individual or small groups of people. It should be public for a reason. There's a public library movement, and has been in the history of this country for really good reasons.
Yes.
And that's one of the problems, isn't it? Is that the public spaces are being taken over by private religious agendas. So if people don't know what Christian nationalism is and what it could look like, it's actually things like this.
Right.
This is what it would look like.
Yeah, taking certain books out of libraries simply because they don't agree with a certain lifestyle, or a certain group of people,
Yeah.
or
I mean, frankly, it's a sexuality conversation, right? The books that were in the library, they talked about people who were writing their own story about their life and their own understanding of their gender and their sexuality.
right, yes.
That's what it was. It wasn't a generic problem with the library and picking bad books.
No,
They were trying to say that they don't want certain stories being told.
certain sort of people. Yeah.
This narrative of shutting down people as a way to get your political needs, it's tempting and it's wrong. It's really dangerous.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your work on this. Thank you for raising a voice about this.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this guest man is Nick Brock. Nick is the West Michigan, Broke Company West Michigan guy. All right, we're good? Good day?
Great.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for being here and for showing your support for Vote Coming Good and Vote Coming Good West Michigan. I just want to share a little piece about why we're here this evening and what kind of compelled me to get to this point now. So, the Declaration of Independence rests with a frame made of pure titanium, and it's coated with gold. The glass enclosing it is tempered, laminated, and calibrated to a thickness of 3/8 of an inch, so that harmful light blocks out the light. And 70 bolts apply 300 pounds of pressure per linear inch to seal it in. Now, the document itself is made of parchment from 1776, and it sits atop a perforated aluminum platform so that moisture reaches the back of it. Because inside there is inert argon that's kept at approximately 40% humidity, and it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit, so as to stave off the oxidation of the parchment and the ink. And then a computerized imaging system created by NASA for the Hubble telescope back in 1981. That technology is used to take precise pictures of the document so that they can monitor its progress. And the equipment that sits upon this, the equipment that it sits upon weighs 6,000 pounds, and it sits on reinforced concrete. And then finally, and perhaps the most grandiose part of this, is that every night, the case that houses the Declaration of Independence, along with our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, is swiftly and gently lowered into a vault beneath where it is sitting. And it's able to withstand, the vault that it is, it's able to withstand a blast, a nuclear blast. And quite inconveniently though, the ability to detect problems with the parchment and ink is growing faster than it is in the ability to solve those problems. And so what to do if a problem is detected has increasingly become the question. And so it is with us, not so much in the preservation of ink and parchment, but in preserving and securing within the hearts and minds of people within West Michigan that our founding principles of liberty and hope extend to all of us, rather than some of us. This is what we are working to preserve and secure. So the ultimate authority of the Declaration rests in the hands of people like you and me, political candidates, people running for library board. And we must collectively breathe new life into this document with a bold imagination and interpretation, because there are political action committees just around the corner named Ottawa Impact, whose founder is Joe Moss and who lives in this district. If you live in Hudsonville, he is your county commissioner for the next 2 years. And he has fostered a majority on the Ottawa County Commissioner Board. So that's why this event is here in Hudsonville, because we are wanting to stir some folks up to wake up, stand up, and speak up. So, it is my hope and goal that you will hear from these candidates who are endorsed by Vote Common Good to do 5 things. Promote dignity, civility, humility, democracy, and mutuality in everything that they do in their political life. And that's all that we are asking them to do. Now, I don't think we're asking them to reinvent the wheel, because a lot of these people are already doing these things. But the baseline is that a lot of these people who are aligned with more extremist groups in West Michigan are not doing this. So that's our hope and goal, a Vote Common Good West Michigan. So you can find us throughout the county of Ottawa and Kent. We have 30 endorsed candidates right now, and it is growing fast. So if you know any other candidates who should reach out to us, I'd love to hear from them. So that is my take with Vote Common Good and Vote Common Good West Michigan. And now you're going to hear from a few of those candidates. But before we do that, Dan is going to sing us a song.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Dan, and I grew up in Southwest Michigan, a little town called Baroda. If you've heard of Baroda,
Yeah, wine country.
wine country now. Yeah, it didn't always used to be that way. But so I grew up around here, and grew up in church, and I think one of my problems I've realized lately is I took it all too seriously. I believed what they were selling. I really thought that our goal as Christians was to make the world a better place and to love one another and care for the poor. And that's why I was so shocked and disturbed in 2016 when 81% of white evangelicals voted for a man like Donald Trump. So I didn't know what to do with all the feelings I was feeling, and I was angry and disheartened. But you do what you can, and so I put my feelings into this song, and it tells a bit of my story, and maybe you'll find yourself in that story as well. It's called Hymn for the 81%. I grew up in your church, Sunday morning and evening service. I knelt in tears at the foot of the rugged cross. Taught me every life is sacred. Feed the hungry and hope the way. Learn from you the highest of all is love. And I believed you when you said that I should trust the words it read to guide my steps through a wicked world. I assumed you knew the same, so imagine my dismay when I watched you lead the sheep straight to the wolves. You said to love the lost, well I'm loving you. You said to speak the truth, well I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the word that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Oh, they started putting kids in cages, ripping mothers from their babies. And I look to you to speak on their behalf. Oh, but all I heard was silence. Oh, you justified it, singing glory, hallelujah, raise the flag. See, your fear turned to hatred, but you baptized it with language torn from the pages of the good book. You weaponized religion, and you wonder why I'm leaving to find Jesus on the wrong side of your walls. You said to love the lost, well I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, well I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Come home, come home. You're better than this. Oh, you taught me better than this. Come home, come home. You're better than this. Oh, you taught me better than this. Come home, come home. Oh. was too naive, or I just didn't want to see that there's always been a little poison in the well. Our churches sit on stolen land, a nation built by stolen hands, and we use the Bible to justify it all. Yeah, from slavery and segregation to mass incarceration, this is who we are, but not who we have to be. And there's a lot of work to do to pull up the evil by the roots, but repentance has to come before there's peace. You said to love the lost, I'm trying to love you now. You said to speak the truth, that's why I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? We love overcome, and justice go down. We love overcome, and justice go down. We love overcome, and justice go down. May love overcome and justice go down.
Thank you so much. Thank you, stand around, guys. Dan Dietrich, everybody. My name is Rob Ryerson. I'm a pastor from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and really happy to be with you tonight. That's my brother. I grew up a Republican. I'm like a lifelong Republican. That's why, like, the stuff that Dan sang about and Dan talked about, really, in so many ways, so much of my story as well. I grew up, listening to Rush Limbaugh. A little bit of trivia about me. If I ever become famous, this is, you just thought, wait a minute, I think I know something about that guy. I actually was a caller on the Rush Limbaugh show. 5 times. Yeah. I read William F. Buckley and had a subscription to National Review when I was like 15 years old. I had a picture of this freshman congressman from Georgia that nobody had ever heard of before. His name was Newt Gingrich. I had his picture hanging on my wall. I went to teenage Republican school for camp. I had a really lame childhood. I think that's what I'm telling you. But I mean, that's what I grew up. I grew up as a conservative, Christian, Republican. Like Doug likes to say, it all came together like a combo meal. You order the burger and you get the fries and the drink too. Like it all just came together as one. And then Donald Trump got elected president. And I was absolutely horrified. Horrified at the fact that my tribe had caused that to happen. And I just begin to have all of these questions swirl in my head. And one of those questions was, like, what happened? You just look like, wait a minute, what just happened? Like, what happened to my Republican Party? Now, listen, the Republican Party is not perfect, right? And frankly, has never been. And there's probably a lot of folks, a lot of you might be sitting there going, it took you to 2016 to ask that question? Yeah, come on, I was asking before then too. We know how it is. Like, this stuff starts to unravel, and you just look like, what in the world is going on? There's these values that used to be talked about, these
expectations that you used to have, and then you see all of that stuff being traded for political power and winning elections. And a phrase would always roll around in my head, what does it profit if you gain the whole Supreme Court and lose your soul? Right? What happened? I think in a lot of ways, the Republican Party changed, became more cruel, more corrupt over time. And also, I think in a lot of ways, I was changing too. I was seeing the world differently, caring much more about justice and generosity, caring much more about making sure that everyone is included, caring much more about how do we figure this out together as opposed to like what tax cut am I going to get when I eventually become rich, right? Because that's how Republicans vote, right? They don't vote for what they like for their experience now. They vote for what their experience eventually, like what they dream of. This weird perversion of the American dream. What happened? Like the Republican Party changed and I changed. And so now I'm like, I don't know, I'm a Republican who travels around the country campaigning for Democrats. Because that's what Donald Trump did to us. But you know what? You maybe have had some similar story where you've gone through some kind of political identity crisis, some kind of political deconstruction, some kind of sense of like, how is all of this changing for me? I'm not the only one who's gone through that. Seth has gone through that too, right? And Seth is going to come and tell us his story. And Seth, I'm gonna sit on the stool not because I'm freakishly tall like Doug is, but just so that
Moral support.
Exactly. Yeah, we Republicans need to stick together around here.
Well, I didn't know all the stories you had there, but I found a lot of parallels because I can remember when I was 7, my older sisters would give me a whole spiel on Ronald Reagan and some brochures and send me out to the retirement homes, knock on doors. So I was canvassing for Ronald Reagan when I was 7 years old. And there's lots of things. My first time voting was when Newt Gingrich and the Contract of America came in there, and I heard him speak, just like you did before that time. I was like, this was interesting. So a lot of similarities there. But this year was the first year that I ran a campaign, and I ran for the State House of Representatives. And in spite of losing, it was one of the fascinating and rewarding experiences that I've had. It was excellent. In knocking at over 20,000 doors across my district, it was such a great thing because as I talked to people on the front steps, conversation after conversation after conversation, I can honestly say I had a lot of my faith in humanity restored. It was wonderful to talk to people and to see what was going on with them. Because when you hear only the media, you get a very warped view of it. So as I was doing this, you got common topics that would come up again and again. People would talk about gas prices back then, right? Inflation, abortion, gun safety, the roads, the condition of the roads. This is strange. All these years of it being the roads, they still haven't figured it out. People are still talking about the roads. But what was fascinating was hearing the disenchantment that people had with the entire process, with politicians who were busy just blaming the other party for everything and trying to create fear to raise money. And I had people who just tell me, look, I'm no longer a practicing Republican anymore. I've seen what's going on. I'm no longer a practicing Republican until I can see some things change. And battles between political parties is nothing new. But our generation has seen it at an interesting level. And it's happening on a new stage, where it's a very personal stage, in many cases, social media. But also, I've never seen it split families quite as much as I've seen it split families. And some could say this is really good because the people are passionate around these things, right? But I think that passion at times is based on mistaken idea that it's about the right versus the left. And you better pick a side. We have what sociologists call toxic tribalism going on right now. You pick a side, you get in, you fight. What's interesting is the choice of your side, the choice of your party, will often determine your friend group. What that means is that because they're your friend group, you no longer will criticize or hold accountable or speak out against anything that's in your own party. Why? Because what would my friends think? So we don't do it. We don't. It's hard. It's hard to even look at some of this situation with our party and say, something is wrong here. Something is not going. It's difficult to have a conversation. It's difficult to go through this. Because most of us do not completely align with our political party. But we feel helpless because you have to choose a side with this. So, and this is a problem because our politics are so much about establishments and not about representation. This is why you go out and talk to people. This is why you go door to door when you're campaigning. Is because you need to talk to people. Everybody. Any political strategist will tell you that what I did was not very smart because I would go into a neighborhood and knock on every single door. You don't do that in the primary. You're only supposed to knock on people in your own party, right? No, I would knock on every single door and have conversations with every single person. It was wonderful. I had good ones, I had difficult ones. 20,000 doors. You know how many truly rude interactions I had? 5. They were great. But we're told in this to vote the party line. You appeal to the donors by sticking to these talking points. You recite what the talking heads are saying over and over. You post it on social media. You stick to the party line. The question is, could this be different? Can our campaigns be about that local connection? Our shared values of faith, hope, and love? Can it be about relationships and accountability? Because when you actually talk to people, when you actually talk to them, you find out there's more that unites us than divides us. Everywhere I went, I was able to go and have conversations. And no matter where they were, I was able to have good, solid conversations about some of the shared concerns that we had with people. So I want to say something. If you heard only one thing from me today, it's this. Become engaged in this process locally. Let's talk about that briefly. How to do that. 1, consider how you view others. We as people are more complex. We're not simply right or wrong, good or bad. Most of what we think about, we know about people in the other party is driven by fear-based messaging, by a media that's looking for ad dollars. So be slow to judge. Be quick to listen. And thoughtful in responses. Number 2 is engage in conversations and not battles. Ask questions. When I was going door to door, what you're supposed to do is introduce yourself and tell them what you stand for and say, would like your vote, and move on. I wasn't a very good friend. Ask questions. Ask open-ended questions, and then listen sincerely. You'll be surprised at how much you have in common with that person whose social media posts make steam come out of your ears. Consider what you believe to be true. Mark Twain one time said, it's not the things that you don't know that's the problem. It's the things that you know for absolute certain that aren't actually true. We need to ignore the simplistic, one-sided propaganda that we see spread across social media. Because it's a Russian bot, most likely. These issues are not as simplistic as a Facebook meme makes it out to be. Look beyond those things. Number 4 is get to know your local politicians. Dan, I love what you're saying there. 100 coffees. You want accountable representatives? Don't look to Washington. Media wants us to look at all the drama going on in Washington because guess what? It gets ad dollars. Ask your local representatives out for coffee. Every last one of them. It doesn't matter the party. Because what is accountable government? Is relationships. Relationships are what hold people accountable. If you want a government that is accountable to you, the people, then you need to get to know them. And 5th, and finally, is run for office yourself. You know, the worst thing in democracy is an uncontested election. Run for office yourself. If the timing is not right for you right now, find a campaign that you can get behind and get involved in. Because you will learn, you will grow, and you will see some problems, and you will see the beauty of it. You will meet the people, and you will get inspired by what's going on. I look forward to seeing each of your names on the ballot someday soon.
Thank you, Seth. So great. So I had this question roll around in my head, what happened to my Republican Party? And then the second question that started rolling around in my head was, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because I just had this deep sense that I had to do something. And so like Seth, I decided to run for office. I ran for Congress. I don't know, have you ever had that day where you wake up in the morning and you go through, you have a normal day, and you go to bed that night thinking, I might run for Congress. It's weird. I ran for Congress, I didn't win. I learned a lot through the process that has led to a whole bunch of opportunities for me now. I joke that the two people who have changed my life more than any others are Jesus and Donald Trump. Because I'm on a completely different path now than I was before. But here's the thing. When you ask that question, like, what can I do? What do I do? I hope you ask that question. Because we all need to be doing. We all need to be involved. I know it feels so big, like we're talking about Christian nationalism and the future of democracy. Now, I'm at the point now in my life when people ask me, like, hey, what do you do today? What are you up to? You know, like, have conversation with friends, or my older kids call me, what are you up to, Dad? And my answer always is, well, I'm just trying to save democracy. That's all. It's all. It feels so big, right? That like we're doing this big stuff. And sometimes when you're trying to do the big thing, you feel like the small thing that you could do isn't going to make any difference. It's just too small. But, you know, I'm a pastor. I try to make sense of life through biblical narratives, and I read these stories that I've heard my entire lives about small things making big differences, like 5 little stones out of the creek that dropped a giant. Fish and loaves, the Lord only had, were able to feed multitudes. You can only do what you can do, but you've got to do it. And I'm really, really excited they have answered Seth's call and are running for office. Now, that might not be your thing yet. He's exactly right. Seth's exactly right. That you need to, like, get involved by donating. Now, some of you might say, I can't give a lot of money to a campaign. Okay. Campaigns need not just like max donors, they need like small donors too. And they need people who will knock on doors, or write postcards, or send texts, or make phone calls, or stuff envelopes in the campaign office, or just take the candidate out to coffee and give them a chance to relax and talk about something else for a while. Like, whatever you can do is the thing you need to do. Whether it's taking people out for coffee, or starting a GoFundMe for the library, or running for office, whatever you can do, you've got to do it. Now, I am a firm believer that the new front in the culture war is, now that the Supreme Court seems to be lost, the new front in the culture war has moved dramatically from Washington, D.C. It's all over the country at our school boards. And so I'm really excited to introduce a couple of folks to you that are running for school board. They're going to come up and tell us their story a little bit and why they're running. Jessica and Alex, come on up here and let's Okay, Alex, you're going to go first. Alex, so tell us who you are, tell us what you're running for, tell us a little bit about the campaign and how things are going.
All right. Yeah, my name's Alex, and it's pronounced Abramitis. Nobody can spell it.
You don't need to pronounce it to cast the ballot.
If I'm on your ballot, I'm the only Alex on your ballot, so we're all good. So it's just Alex, it's fine. So I'm running for Jenison School Board. And you know, I've spent the past few years watching a lot of things, watching tempers flare, watching friends no longer be friends, watching families divide, watching people who I consider friends die in the hospital of the disease that they just needed to take a shot to prevent. You know, and I've seen this happen, and it's because of the politics that's out there. And I've watched it, and I just couldn't watch anymore. I needed to do something. I know that schools are being targeted specifically by a lot of these groups, and they want to do a lot of things in schools that benefit, let's face it, some people that, you know, are kind of fringe, honestly. They're loud. They seem like there's a lot of them. But there's not as many as we think there are. And I wanted to come in and help with the school board. I don't think that there are massive problems at Jenison Public Schools. They're great schools. They're top rated. They're wonderful. And I want to see them stay that way. But I also want our students to be safe. I want our students, all of them, to be safe. I want them to feel like that is a safe place for them. I want them to know that the people there love them, you know, and that they care about them. I'm an alumni of Jenison. I grew up in Jenison. You know, a guy who's going to speak, Todd Avery, he was my theater teacher at Jenison. You know, I was proud to be there the first year he was there. Which tells you how old we are. But, but you know, Todd would often, we would challenge Todd as students. We would say things, we would do things, and Todd has this great head shake. And, and smile, kind of a half smile with a head shake. And we knew that we were getting to him a little bit, but he cared. And he showed us all that he loved us. And he cares about the students, and that's what I want to see staying on school board. I want to see us focus on students. I want to see us focus on their safety, and I want to see us focus on the things that really matter to these kids.
Fantastic. Alex, thank you so much for running. Good luck. Jessica, I so hope you tell us that you're running against Alex, because it could get really awkward. Wouldn't that be fun? Jessica, tell us. Yeah, Jessica, tell us about your story and your run for school board.
Yep, I am not running against Alex. I'm running for a seat on the Hudsonville Public Schools Board of Education. Nick asked me to write a speech, so if you don't mind, I got a lot to say.
Well, if we start playing the Oscar music.
All right. In March, when I was encouraged to run for a seat on the Hudsonville Public Schools Board of Education in November, I hesitated. As a licensed social worker, mother to 2 elementary-age students, and a 20-year resident of Hudsonville, I knew my background, experience, and passion for kids and education would be an asset on our board.
There goes that plan.
So why was this such a difficult decision? There's a lot of anger and political tension in our community. Community members have threatened our school board members and our superintendent during the public comment portion of board meetings. Our hard-working teachers received nasty emails from parents who also badmouthed them on social media. I have friends who have been followed and harassed at gas stations and the grocery store because they are against book banning. I was nervous that if I chose to run, my family would be targeted. Our faith, values, and beliefs called into question, and that's a lot. I have come to realize over the past few years that somehow my family's brand of Christianity isn't, well, the same as others in our community. We take Jesus' words in Matthew 22 seriously and try to live them out in our daily lives. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. That is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is to love your neighbor as yourself. Love our neighbors, all of our neighbors. Isn't that what Christianity is all about? Are we not supposed to exhibit love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? Serve others with humility? We love because he first loved us, right? Philippians chapter 2 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but to the interests of others. Christianity was never meant to bear the burden of personal satisfaction or freedoms. Biblical Christianity doesn't encourage us to chase after our own desires. That's not what life in Christ is about. Jesus told us to take up our cross and follow him. The Apostle Paul wrote a lot about giving up personal preferences and satisfaction for the benefit of others. As a school board candidate, I have been challenged on my platform of advocacy for all students. I have had community members argue with me about how teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion is indoctrination of our students. I have been asked why I am okay with pornographic books being allowed in schools and subsequently have been labeled a pedophile. When did the word true get twisted around to have a new definition? Teaching true history in schools is being strongly promoted, but true history is defined as America being an exceptional nation blessed by God, and somehow this true history glosses over hard truths like the genocide of Native Americans, the Tulsa Race Massacre, development of the Society for Human Rights in 1924, social, racial, economic injustice, and the list goes on and on. Those things can't be talked about because they're CRT, critical race theory, which, by the way, historical events in and of themselves are not CRT. So whose true history is this? There are those in the community who want to focus on protecting our borders of Hudsonville due to outside groups infiltrating the community. There are others who attend our district's Board of Education meetings and during public comment walk up to the podium, Bible in hand, and urge the district administration and teachers to get back to teaching the Bible and salvation through Jesus Christ. That our children need to be saved, and it is up to our public school teachers to lead them away from sin. I think that our
next board meeting, I should stand up and remind the board and public that our country was founded on both the freedom of religion and also freedom from religion. Many people of faith, including Christians, strongly support the separation of church and state as a core component of religious liberty. While the Christian nationalist movement is focused on gaining power and control, what I see behind it is a lot of fear. Fear of learning, fear of change. Dare I even say fear of God? Unlike some candidates in local, state, and national races, power and control are not the driving forces behind my campaign for a seat on our school board. Humility and my desire to serve are. And to be completely truthful, my main motivation for everything I do in life is to someday hear Jesus say to me, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." And so I press on in love. I urge you to vote this November for candidates who have and will uphold common good commitments of dignity, mutuality, humility, civility, and democracy. Candidates who are not afraid to speak out about the damage, divisiveness, and dishonesty of Christian nationalism. As a common good candidate for the Hudsonville Board of Education, I will work hard to keep the agenda of Christian nationalist organizations out of our public school district, and will work hard to make sure all students are loved and treated with dignity, respect, and compassion for who they are. Thank you.
So fantastic. And there's more. So, you know, I said that school boards are like the front line of the culture war. They absolutely are, but also our state legislatures and our courts are just so critical to holding back and resisting this trend towards extremism that we have nationwide, especially when we've got a Supreme Court that seems willing to rubber stamp some of the most extremist things that come out. So, I want to introduce a couple more folks to you who are running for office. Kim, Todd, and Mercedes. And you all are carrying papers too, so I'm gonna just pull this back out here. Kim, how about you go first? Tell us who you are, and tell us your story, and tell us about your run for office.
My name is Kim Nady. I'm running for state senate in the new 31st. Nick, I'm going to go off script. So I'm a teacher, and I follow directions. And Nick told me to cut my speech down to 3 minutes. And I decided that I'm going off script. I have this here because there are a couple of quotes that I want to have correct. But I'm going to beg your indulgence, so I'll try to stay at the 3-minute mark. I have a pretty good sense of time because I'm a musician. But I'm going to do what it's very difficult for me to do. I'm a worker. I do stuff. If things need to be done, I do them. And often I'm doing that to avoid my feelings. My theory of life is that's why God invented cookies, is to avoid those very complicated feelings. So a little bit about my background. I grew up in the downriver area of Detroit. We moved to Grand Haven when I was in 9th grade. I was 14 years old, already a fairly accomplished pianist. Putting me in Grand Haven was like putting me on Mars. I will never forget the first time my mom and I walked into Meijer, and we're walking around in this place that had all the things. And we were used to grocery stores and Sears that had clothes and appliances, but you know. And we're walking around, and we can't find things that we're used to buying. And my dad's family is Hungarian, his mother's family is Polish, my mom's family is English and Slavic. And we're standing in an aisle, and my mom says, Kim, it's really sad when the only ethnic food you can find is a windmill cookie. And honestly, I didn't know where I was. And I was poised to become a very wild child. I was very unhappy, did not like it at all. And then my English teacher asked me to try out for a play. And I found my tribe. And I was okay through high school. I then went to Hope College. And I'm a Methodist. I wasn't really raised a lot in church, but we're Methodist. And Hope gave me a couple of really important experiences, my religion classes, in terms of understanding things like the formation of the Bible, the history of Christianity, and also how to think. And was very, very instructive in my life. I went to graduate school in the Chicago area. I went to Northwestern and did piano pedagogy and performance. Started my professional life as an adjunct prof in piano and as a performer. So I did that for 15 years, got married, had 2 kids, never wanted to leave Chicago. I loved it there. And then life happened. And we wound up coming back to Michigan. I had teaching certification here. I went to work in the public schools and wound up back home. Now, I knew what it was to come back to West Michigan. I knew the culture. I knew that as a single mom, at that point my marriage had fallen apart. I knew that it was going to be very difficult, and I knew the first thing I had to do was find a church, which I did. I am still at that church, Georgetown United Methodist, across the street on 28th. The church that has the beautiful doors out front, the welcoming doors for the LGBTQ community that have been vandalized more than once. And that church has been very important to me personally and my growth, and also raised my kids. My kids have left the church. My kids don't go to church. They really have rejected Christianity. Many of us, my age, I'm 64, a lot of you who have kids who are in their 20s and 30s are experiencing the same thing. Our kids are walking away from the church because of the hypocrisy they see on a daily basis, and a lot of that is wrapped around politics. So I think, in terms of my race, why did I decide to do it? Well, I'm ornery, number one. And I have been dogging Roger Victory for many years. I ran against him before. I ran against him for state rep. We got the whopping percentage of 24.9%. However, we doubled the number of Democratic votes in my district in one cycle. That showed me one thing. It showed me that here in Ottawa County, there were people who wanted to have Democrats to vote for. We were tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. We're tired of voting in Republican primaries for the lesser of two evils. And then I became very involved with the Democratic Party in Ottawa. I have served as chair, and I'm currently the secretary. I also am the president of Ottawa Integrity PAC, which was formed as a direct counter to Ottawa Impact. When we saw the rise of Ottawa Impact, and we know that that's wrapped around Christian nationalism, there were a group of us, Karen is one of them, who's here tonight, who said, yeah, no, this cannot happen. So let's just look at a couple of things that drove me to run. When Joe Moss formed Ottawa Impact, on his personal website, he had this statement, which he has now scrubbed. But you can go in the Wayback Machine and find this stuff out. Do y'all know about that? I just found out about this. My son told me about the Wayback, and now I'm really scared. So, I have been known to have loose lips from time to time. So, when he started it, this is the message on his website. Morality is necessary for Republican government. Religion is necessary for morality. Therefore, religion is necessary for Republican government. Let's think about that in light of the First Amendment and the Establishment Clause. There shall be no establishment of religion or prohibition of free exercise thereof. This is absolutely antithetical to our Constitution. The last thing I want in my faith life is my government. Get out. My faith life is my faith life. How I choose to act as a citizen is based in my moral structure and based in my religion and my morality. But the government isn't going to start dictating that to me, and we should all be very, very afraid of this. As I said yesterday, imagine what Joe Moss would say if a candidate for office in Ottawa that was a Muslim had that statement on their website. The walls would come down. We have to look at the actions of our elected leaders. My opponent, the person who I am running against, has not represented me well for all the years he has been in office. He was a 3-term representative. He is running for his 2nd term as Senate. It's interesting what he shows up for. Seth mentioned door knocking and being out in the public. I go to Roger's office hours, I have for years. Almost every one of them. There are usually 2 or 3 people there, and they're usually people I've dragged. Now, granted, they are at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday at Sprinkles, but it is a sacrifice we have to make. Okay? Now, Roger won't show up for a public forum. He'll show up for a meet and greet. He won't show up for a public forum. The impact candidates for county commission refuse to show up for a public forum. They will not stand up with the other candidates and face the public and let you ask questions. I am here to tell you I have had Democratic consultants tell me, don't do debates. Don't do public forums. And I have said, bull. If I'm going to ask all of you to vote for me, I better be able to stand here and answer your questions. So I issue that challenge to all the people who watch this, who consider running for office. That is a load of garbage. And it's all because we're in our silos. And we want to stay in our silos. Social media has not helped us on this front. So in order for us to really have a functioning democracy, this is what we have to do. Ed Seth is absolutely right about knocking doors. It's a great experience. It sounds really scary. I have to clean myself up to do that. But what you hear from people, Jessica is here, she's one of my field directors, and when we talked about training on doors, I said, you start with a question. I always start with a question. I introduce myself and I say, what's your number 1 issue in the county right now? It is more important that we listen than that we yap. I want to thank all of you who have already supported my campaign. I want to thank all of you for coming out. It means the world to candidates to have people come out. It means the world to us to have vote common good here. It really is, it's a dynamic, wonderful group, and I am very proud to be part of it. And I hope that you all will start holding elected officials to a higher standard, because we're not where we should be right now. And I do hope that you will consider voting for me, and if I need to answer questions, I am happy to do that. Thanks for your time.
I heard a rumor that you were a theater coach or a theater teacher.
Yes. And when I first met Alice, my hairline was right here.
Yeah.
Just took like 3 weeks.
I have to say, I have really high expectations for this.
because you know, if you're going to act it out for us, tell us about yourself and your run for the state legislature here in Michigan.
Well, thank you so much. As has been so said, my name is Todd Avery, and I'm a really proud candidate for Vote Common Good. It is awesome to see so many of my friends and supporters here, and some people that I met before we started, who I count now my new friends and supporters. My district is the 85th. It's one of the new ones. It kind of basically encompasses Jenison, the northern part of Jamestown, Zeeland, and of course Hudsonville. My campaign slogan is "Put democracy first," and I did not choose that simply to have a catchy phrase. I chose the slogan because I believe truly, and this is the big reason why I decided to run and that my vote was no longer enough, is that our democracy is under attack. And we've heard that several times. And now I'm a grandpa for the first time. And there's a lot more at stake than just my life now. And that's why I chose to run. We have to send a message in November that we're not going to stand idly by these extreme positions attack our election integrity, our public school teachers, women's reproductive rights, our environment, and the availability of diversified literature in public libraries. I'd like to focus on two of those major platforms that I have today. I was a public school teacher for 31 years. I taught in Farwell, way up by Mount Pleasant, and then I ended my career after, I think, 27 years at Jenison High School. I was the theater teacher there. Alex was one of my first students. I know firsthand the challenges that educators face. I also recognize through staying in touch with teachers these past 2 years, my colleagues, my friends, that things have gotten extremely difficult. We basically went from being heroes to zeros, if you will, in terms of the public mindset. Not from everybody, but from a select few. In most recent newsletter, it's gotten so bad that I just received from the Michigan Education Association members that retired, which I'm now a part of, that the union is highlighted that teacher shortage, and they're asking people like me to come back to the classroom. Retired teachers, because they need them. Because of the COVID crisis, because of the current level of criticism that teachers go through, they are fleeing the profession. I was honored to be able to announce the halftime festivities at the Jenison High School football game, and one of the members of the court wanted to be a teacher. And I just teared up at that second because, oh my gosh, do you know what you're getting yourself into? But I was grateful that there are still people out there that want to do it, but it's nowhere near enough because they're knocking on my door and saying, hey, come on back, it's going to be fun. When I started my teaching career in the 1980s, my biggest challenge was having my lesson plans ready a month at a time. That was it. And now, teachers face threats to not only their safety, but their students' safety through gun violence and a mental health crisis that has just been brought on by mostly bullying and marginalization. I believe that this shortage is symptomatic of the threat on our democracy that I've highlighted at every opportunity I've had throughout my campaign. Instead of being recognized for their incredible service and dedication to students' education, I see public school teachers and administrators being attacked for working to keep students safe and providing a classroom environment where they can discuss issues of relevance while respecting diverse points of view. Textbook definition of a public education. Our educators are heroes, and they deserve our support so that they, and they will, give their best to help our kids, because that's what teachers do.
Yes, amen.
The classroom is not the only place where our democracy is threatened. Many of you are aware of public libraries, including school libraries, and our Patmos Library situation here most recently that I spoke at. Are the crosshairs of theirs who have an agenda to restrict access to certain types of literature. The millage was voted down in August and will be back on the ballot on November 8th, I'm happy to say. There are people who would rather see their public library closed than have books representing the LGBTQ+ community in circulation. I understand that issues are complex, but I firmly believe that banning books is a dangerous and slippery slope. From May to August, I visited, my wife and I, many public libraries as storytellers, as performers, because we're actors, right? As part of the summer reading program. And at one of those stops in southern Michigan, a children's programming director told me that she did not know how much more she could take. Although a minority view, a small but very vocal group had in essence taken the library hostage through their outrage of inclusive literature. They had stirred so much division in the community that people voiced anxiety to her about going to the library for fear that they too would be attacked by this group. That's crazy. What country are we living in where people think that's acceptable? We must support our public libraries, including the Patents Library, if we value all that they add to our communities, way beyond books, but those books in particular. On November 8th, I hope that you will help me send a message to West Michigan to stand for the common good. My name is Todd Avery. Once again, I'm running for state representative in the 85th, and I choose to put democracy first, and I hope you will join me in that quest. Thank you.
Fantastic. Mercedes just told me, and we're going to hold you to this. She has told me that her talk is shorter than Todd's. So that's how you earn votes. Mercedes, tell us about yourself and what you're running for.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mercedes Watts, and I am running for Circuit Court Judge here in Ottawa County. It's a brand new position that was created in February for the family division. Everyone always asks me, why do you want to be a judge? I want to be a judge because I believe I can help the most people as a judge. Judges have a huge impact on people's lives, and I want to pass along the positive experiences I've had and be a positive impact on people. Like I said, this is for the family division, and family law is my specialty. I'm a Grand Valley alum. I attended DePaul University for law school in Chicago. Upon graduating from law school, I returned home to West Michigan where I opened my own firm. I did primarily family and landlord-tenant law. After that, I worked for legal services, doing the same family and landlord-tenant law. After that, I was an assistant prosecutor doing family and criminal law. And now I am a public defender for Ottawa County. One of the main things I would like to change is how petition orders to remove children are handled. I've practiced in multiple counties across Michigan, and what I've seen is when a family court judge or referee receive a petition order to remove a child, they immediately sign it. The first hearing isn't held for 1 to 2 months down the road, but by then, all the damage has been done. Families torn apart, children traumatized, and county money has been spent needlessly. What I want to do is hold hearings before this removal happens. So much comes out during these hearings, and I believe they are vital before removing a child. These hearings take time, but I'm willing to put in the work to ensure that I am not having a child removed on unsubstantiated allegations. My goal as judge is to keep families together, provide resources to families and juveniles aimed at rehabilitation and intervention, just like the Michigan Task Force on Juvenile Justice Reform. This task force was formed by our governor's executive order last year to become compliant with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act, which was created by Congress in 1975. The purpose of the task force was to lead a data-driven analysis of Michigan's juvenile justice system and recommend proven practices and strategies for reform grounded in data, research, and fundamental constitutional principles. There are 23 members on the Juvenile Justice Task Force, and they include our Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist, and Tom Lateef, who is the Juvenile Court Director here in Ottawa County, and also 21 other members, 2 of which I believe went through the juvenile justice system themselves. Throughout this past year, they have researched Michigan's juvenile justice system, which included having reviewed local and state policies, court rules, and administrative policies and practices, holding over 100 focus groups and interviews, and having ongoing conversations with juvenile justice agencies. According to the task force, a few things that their research revealed is that Michigan lacks the policy framework and service infrastructure necessary to ensure that youth who are at a low risk of reoffending are diverted from the juvenile justice system statewide. That Michigan lacks statewide policies and tools to ensure that predisposition detention is only used for youth who are in public safety or flight risk, and that minority youth are disproportionately represented in all parts of juvenile justice continuum, and few statewide structures exist to address these disparities. That minority youth are petitioned for court at 2 times the rate of white youth and are more than 1.5 times as likely to be adjudicated as their white peers. Minority youth are detained at 6 times the rate of white youth, and the average length of stay in detention is 7 days longer for them. And that minority youth are placed to state boards 3 times the rate of white youth, and there is limited attention statewide to ensure that the residential system is equipped to serve youth of color effectively. That's just to name a few things. My goals are in line with that of the Michigan Task Force on Juvenile Justice Reform. This is why I am running for this seat. I have seen the devastating consequences this overburdened system has on the children of Michigan, and I aim to ease that burden. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd like to move here just to vote for these people. Wouldn't that be great? I live in Minneapolis and I love it there. Hey, thanks for being here tonight. Just a couple reminders. You found a few things on your chairs there. One of those is this flyer about a curriculum that we put together that's designed to help small groups, individuals, families, people online, and where your group get together, talk about Christian nationalism. Here's what we've learned. A lot of people see that word and they're like, I don't like that. And I don't really know what that is. So we want to help you know what it is. We put together a video curriculum. We did an online video series a year ago. We've edited that together into small 2-3 minute pieces that then have a printed curriculum and a PDF curriculum that comes with it. It's all free on our website. You can get it, you can watch it with church groups, individuals, pull a family group together, do something online, have people watch the video, and it gives you a framework in which to talk about it. Sometimes it just helps to have a framework. We are also coming back here to Michigan again. This isn't our only time we're going to be here before Election Day. We're planning lots of events throughout Michigan. One style of event that we want to do are live events on this curriculum. We love to do them at colleges, we love to do them at churches, anywhere else. These events we do are really political. We want them to be that way. We want you to think about your political identity. When we do these confronting Christian nationalism ones, they're not quite as statedly political. So they're really comfortable for people to do in churches or nonprofit organizations, that kind of thing. So if that's something you're interested in, please talk to me tonight or stay in touch about where we can do that if you want to help us host that. We always need hosts and people to help make it happen, right? We work all over the country, so it's kind of difficult to do. And by the way, there's people from this area that are on there. Kristen Dumais is one of our presenters. Christy Berghoff is one of our hosts for that. So it's got a local flavor. It would go over quite well, I think, with some people here. You'll also find this little flyer on your seat. We did a bike ride with some people from this area. In fact, we rode from San Diego, California, along the U.S.-Mexico border, and then onto the edge of Texas in St. Augustine, Florida. We did that a year ago. In fact, a year ago right now, we were riding 60, 70 miles a day along the U.S.-Mexico border. We did that because we wanted to get close to the border. We wanted to meet people on both sides of the border. We knew that the conversation that Republicans were going to want to have in 2022 was about the border. We knew the lies they were sharing about the border. We knew that they were going to put people on buses and try to send them and act as if they're spreading a disease around the country. We were prepared for that, so we're putting a documentary together. It's called the We the People Ride, asking the question, who's included in the we of we the people in this country? So that documentary is coming together. We're still looking for some funders around the back end of that, so if you've ever wanted to be a documentary film producer for an award-winning documentary, this is your chance. You should do that today. You can also watch on our YouTube channel whole sections of this thing, and then we do a little tour of this. So if you want to talk to people about immigration because you know what you're hearing isn't right, but you're not sure what to say, we've got these great videos, personal videos of people that are in Mexico with asylum seekers, of people that nearly died in the desert, people that fell off of the wall with border patrol. We've talked to everybody we could as we rode our bicycles along. And then we rode all along the coast and went to Florida. Because we want to remind Governor DeSantis in Florida that he doesn't have people crossing from Mexico into Florida. That's not how it happens. He had to go to Texas to get them, so maybe he doesn't know one state from the other. But we rode our bikes along the whole way, so we can refresh his memory on that. You may also find a Love and Politics pledge card on it. That's something we ask all politicians to take, is a Love and Politics pledge, that they'll comport themselves in a way consistent with love. But you can define love any way you want. I come from a tradition that reminds me that three things matter: faith and hope and love. And the greatest of those is love. You can have a lot of things. You can speak with the tongues of angels. But if you don't have love, you're a clanging gong. You can win every election, even for Democrats. But if you don't have love, you might render our country ungovernable. Tina Turner asked it, we asked it. What's love got to do with it? It's a really good question. Ask your campaigns if they'll comport themselves in a way consistent with love. No religion, no faith owns love. It should hold all of us. Love should hold all of us. Amen on that? Hey, you might ask what gets us around this country. How are we going to go to all these places? How are we going to go down to Texas and come all the way back? We're going to go right to Austin, Texas, by the way, and right outside the governor's office in Texas, and remind him of a couple of things. So if you want to come down to Texas with us on October 4th, that's going to be a good one. So if you're looking for a trip, come down to Texas. But there's four things that get us around this country: faith, hope, love, and diesel. Diesel gets us around the country. So we like to say we'd love to have you in the tank with us, and we'd love to take you with us if you ever want to sponsor or help fund what we do. It costs us about $1,400 a day to be on the road. It's kind of a lot. There's 4, 5, 6 of us. We got to sleep, we got to eat, we got to drive, we got to set up stuff, we got to pay for all this stuff. So if you want to make a contribution, we'd love to have it. Some people want to sponsor a whole day. Some people want to sponsor a whole week. Some people want to sponsor the whole thing. Let me know if you want to do that. We'd love to send you home with something. You can give any amount of money. You can give $1. You can give a penny. You can be that widow from the old story and leave 2 pence over there and take whatever you want. We just want to send this stuff with you as well, because we want you to have a sign to carry, whether it's on your chest or on your hat or on a sticker or a sign that's in your yard. Put it next to another sign. For a lot of people, when they see a Democratic candidate sign next to a faith, hope, and love sign, they just don't know what to do with it, right? It kind of throws them off. That's a really good conversation starter. So we'd love you to take any of that stuff. If you don't have any money or you don't want to give us any money, you can still take some stuff. We're not here to hold that stuff hostage or demand it from you. But we'd love to do this. If this is something you think is important, you want us to come back, we're going to find a way to do it. Raise money for people all over the country. People who live elsewhere, live in states where it's not in the crucible like you all are. They're chipping in, and we're really, really glad. And if you'd like to be part of that, we'd love to. We take Venmo, we take checks, we take cash. We're done with Bitcoin, so if you're trying to give us Bitcoin, it's not cost anymore. So any of that, so we can do all that stuff over there if you want. Or go to our website. If you're not already on our email list, we'd love to have you on the email list. You can sign up there. We'll email you 3-4 times a week. Seriously, we will. But always good little updates and encouraging things. And sometimes sometimes they're money asks and all the rest. Look, if we didn't have to send emails asking people for money, we wouldn't. But here's what we know: if we don't send the email, people don't send us money. We send the email, they send us money. It's just the craziest thing. For these couple of weeks, it does take a little something to get around, so that's why we do it. Nobody here is getting rich. I can promise you that across all of us to do this. And we're really, really honored to do it. So we'd be taking you with us if you were to make any kind of contribution. Dan's going to sing us out. We don't have any rush to get out of here, so you're welcome to hang around. We'll probably find a brewery nearby if you want to hang out with us afterward. We have to pack all this stuff up and put it in the trailer. But thank you for being here tonight. Candidates, thank you so much for running. Thanks for all that.
We'll be free, we'll all be free, yes, we'll be free, we'll all be free, yeah, we'll be free, we'll all be free, oh, we'll be free, we'll all be free, yeah. Look around, inside, celebrate to the darkness of the love.